Hey, you guys, how are y'all doing tonight? I'm doing all right. I'm trying to set the thing. Let me see. No, let's see. There has to be a way to adjust this, guys. I'm trying to. Hey, honey, how you doing, Kyra? How's the princess? I don't know what in the world I'm doing here, but I think I got it good enough to. Oh, I got a scratch or something on my head, but anyway, guys, tonight I'm gonna start with my story. I know my shirt's a little big, yeah, but it'll do. Um, so Wednesdays are kind of rough for me. I take my methotrexate on Tuesdays, and that's all right. She just needs a little extra attention. That's all. Put some Vaseline on my lips, y'all, because I'm going to be talking quite a bit. But um, anyway, I take my methotrexate on Tuesdays, and then I take Humira every other Wednesday. But methotrexate, I'm on a pretty high dose, and I take it orally. So I'm pretty nauseous on Wednesdays, just as a general thing. So I take my methotrexate actually in two doses. I take half in the morning and then half at night instead of all my pills at one time. So it helps with digestion because you only digest so much of the methotrexate. Your body will only absorb so much of it. So if you take more than your body can absorb at one time, then you really waste the rest. So I take it in two doses in a 24-hour period. But it's pretty strong. It's a pretty strong medication. Years ago, it was you in much higher doses than what I take it, but the same drug is used to treat leukemia in children. So, um, yeah. And then, like I said, I take Humira. It's the biologic I'm on for my rheumatoid arthritis. And but anyway, so on tonight, I want to start talking, telling my story, which is really the reason why. Sorry, I was just silencing my phone. The true reason why I started this channel to tell my story and to be able to talk with others about my story, what I've been through, who I am, why I am, who I am today, and so forth and so on. So, yeah, about, I would say it was last year. So, about the middle of last year, um, I decided that I wanted to get the case. Well, let me go back a little further. What happened is in 2016, I had my heart attack, and my medically, I just started decreasing substantially. It really got kind of bad. Well, then while I was sick and going through while I was going through, oh Lord, sorry, I'm having technical difficulties, but I was I wanted to get the case from when I was younger and put in foster care. Um, but anyway, what happened was I started seeing a counselor because I had been sick and some depression, just from being sick. My entire life changed. Anybody knows me knows I couldn't do as much as I once did once I got sick. But anyway, I started seeing a counselor, and one of the things that she was talking about was my childhood. Now, mind you, when I was a child and went into foster care, they sent me to therapy. I actually saw my first psychotherapist when I was 5. At 5 years old, I saw a psychotherapist at Sunnyland in Gainesville. We'll get into that later as the story goes along. But so I have lots of experience with therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists and all, those different people. So anyway, I started seeing a therapist that was recommended by my primary care physician. I have a lot of confidence in him, so I was glad to go. So I began my therapy, and we began to talk about my past, something I hadn't really talked about in years. Like I said, I did some therapy in high school when I first went into foster care. I hated it, but it was what I needed, So anyway, long story short, after talking with her, and I went and got the case file from my the trial. I went into foster care because the man that my mother married thought that he could do whatever he wanted to do with me. I was sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and verbally abused, even prior to my mother marrying him. But when she married him, they came back from their honeymoon, and he began to prepare me for what was coming. And at the time, I didn't know. I was really pretty naive at that point in my life, if I'm honest. We, grew up in Orangewood. We were the first family to live in the apartment we lived out there in when it was first built. That's a little apartment development here where I'm from, and for extremely low income families. So it's still income restricted to today. So, but I went and I got the case. It was 321 pages. That's how many pages the case file was that I received. And we're talking about, this case goes back to 1992. So I had to go to the state attorney's office in Gainesville to actually pick it up. Anyway, all of that's pretty irrelevant. But so I got the case file. Well, when the case, between the time of ordering the case file and it being prepared and ready, because there's a time in between that. You have to pay for it, and then, you have the time where they are, they prepare it and send it to you. Anyhow, in that time, I just kind of just was thinking about things, like what happened, what was going on. I don't know how many of you have been in situations like that, but sometimes things seem a little less sometimes you remember things and it doesn't really make a lot of sense to you as an older. I think I'm pretty smart. I'm not bragging, but I do think I'm pretty good at figuring out things and doing things and taking care of stuff. So, but I couldn't remember everything. So anyway, I got the case and I began to read it. Y'all, it stirred up so much. It helped me remember that I was healed and I was free. No one could ever, there is no one that can ever take advantage of me again. But as I began to read this case file, a lot of things were stirred up for me. Um, One of the things is the man that my mother was married to. He, in the case file, you can see where he failed the lie detector test or the lie recognition or whatever the heck the test was called back then. But he failed it 3 times. I passed it all 3 times as a 14-year-old child. This man was charged initially with 2 charges of sexual battery on a child, on a minor under some age. I can't remember exactly, but it's in there. And he was also charged with 11 lewd and lascivious charges. All those charges were on myself, on me. He did 2 years of probation. In this file is where they talk about how they mic'd him up to go in to snitch on people, FDLE and other Bradford County resources that testified in the case. There were people that were friends with my mother then who actually had things to say about me. I was a child, and these adults were making it as if it was my fault that this man had taught me how to masturbate, that this man had taught me how he liked to be how I was supposed to jack him off. This man had taught me how to, perform oral sex and different things that this man taught me. And my mother and these other adults, none of them sided with me. In the court papers, y'all should see some of the stuff they said about me. Anybody knows me knows that I have never been that person. But anyway, so let me start with my story. I'll start with my story from where my mother married this man. Anyone that doesn't know his name is Freddie Roden. Use public records, so you can do with it what you want to do. But him and my mother got married. I was not a fan. I never liked him. He always rubbed me differently, and my mother always said it was because I was defiant. No, it was because of who he was. Anyway, him and my mother got married. They went on their honeymoon, came back, and I guess he thought he married me too. And I was an option. So for the first 6 months, y'all, I have to have my medication while we discussing this. I'm just saying, right? I know y'all understand. After about a year of him fingering me, having me jack him off, and to give him a blowjob, fellatio, whatever y'all want to call it, whatever fits your definition and description. I don't really care how you tell it. Lord, that's gonna keep going out, y'all. Anyway, after they came back, after about the first year of those things happening, I told my mother. Actually, no, I told a lady named Shandy. And her husband was friends with Freddie. So I told her what Freddie was doing to me and having me do to him. Well, she went and told my mother. My mother, Gloria. then proceeded to say how angry she was with him, have Shandy take us back to her house, and that she was going to come there and get us later. Well, what occurred was she showed up to Shandy's house, Shandy and her husband's home, with Freddie still with her. And she informed me that she would deal with me and explain to me the situation when we got home. I don't even remember how I felt in that moment, if I'm honest with you guys. I don't know. But I do know that as a mother, I'm just like, that really happened like that, huh? You know, it's really, really tough for me as a mother to understand her mind. It really is. And as a woman, I don't understand. But so the next day, this was that night. So the next morning, I got woke up out of a room that I shared. It was me, Leslie, Christopher, and Freddie's two sons all shared one bedroom with a three stack bunk bed. Now let me tell y'all something. First of all, ain't a child of mine gonna live like that. However, that's what happened. That's where we moved to from Orangewood. I'd rather stayed in Orangewood, y'all. Anyway, so we moved. They got the next day when I got up, they woke me up. I was told I would be sitting outside in front of the trailer in under a oak tree, and that I would sit there from sun up to sundown until Freddie thought I was, had suffered enough for lying on him. I didn't lie. I could describe that man's penis in detail at 14 years old. My mother let me sit outside under that tree. At night, when the sun started to go down, now we're talking June in Florida, when the sun would start to go down, I would get to go inside, and I got to sit on the floor in the room I just told you guys about, that all five of us, 3 boys and 2 girls, shared. And I got a piece of bologna on a piece of bread and a half a glass of water that they had my sister Leslie bring to me. And then I took a bath and I got to go to bed. Now, mind you, the bathroom that we took showers in, everybody in that house had a hole in the door, and my mother never questioned the door, but why there was a hole in the door to the bathroom. So in my opinion, she's as guilty as he is for anything that happened to me after she married him. Y'all, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss any comments, but I may. If I do, I'll have to go back and look later. But so for every day that happened, I got up, I sat under the tree. I got up, I sat under the tree. I went inside, I had a piece of bread with a piece of bologna on it and a half a glass of water. That happened every day. I don't even remember how long it happened. If I'm honest, I don't know. I don't remember. But it happened for a long time. For those of you that know me, you know I'm pretty stubborn. But I'll never forget, there was one afternoon, and Freddie came and he sat, there was a picnic table in the yard. And he sat at that picnic table, and from the chair, you could see the picnic table from the tree. And he asked me to come to the picnic table. Of course, I got up and went over there. And he said to me, Either I would go back to our previous agreement and do whatever else he asked, or he was going to mess with Leslie. For those of y'all that don't know, Leslie was my little sister, and she had cerebral palsy. And she was a little different, you know, and I had always protected them, her and my little brother, Christopher. I'd always protected and took care of them, even in Orangewood when our mom was, you know, in the streets with different men and whatever she had going on at that time, because we'll talk about that later, but a lot of that doesn't make any sense either to me. But so I got out from under that tree that day. This man did not only sexually abuse me and get away with it. This man physically abused me. He used to beat me to try to make me cry, and my mother would watch. I can make her cry. I will break you. I remember him saying those words to me. I will break you. And my mother sat there and she watched it while this occurred. He used to make me watch Mississippi Burning and tell me we were no good because my father is not all white. I cleaned, I cooked, I took care of everybody in the house. My mother watched, and Freddie was okay with what he was doing. And he was okay enough with it to continue to lie. And because he knew he was a snitch for FDLE, he was taped up. I can show you in court documents where this says that the man testifying said he had wired him up to do work for them. It's in the court document. I'm not lying. Nobody can take this down. It's facts. And his attorney, you know, that defended him, Dudley Hardy. They're still good friends, from my understanding. Birds of a feather, that's all I tell you. I look at people a lot different. But anyway, when I got these court documents of 321 pages I was looking through, there was some very interesting things. Now, you can find this man and everything I'm telling you on the national, well, maybe not everything I'm saying, because the documents, you got to get them. But on the National Sex Offender Registry, his name is Freddie Rodin, and he's on there, I think it's 11 lewd and lascivious charges, because he pled out with the state and copped a plea, so they dropped the 2 sexual battery charges and just stuck to the lewd and lascivious, which gave him less time. And there was also a towel in evidence. So when the second time, I had decided I had had enough, they weren't going to prove I was lying again. So by this point, I'm turning tricks, because that's what I was doing. I was giving him what he wanted in replace for something else. Period. I don't care how you look at it, whatever. That's how I learned to live the way I lived for a very long time. My mother's husband was my first trick. And due to that, I spent an entire life, years, not seeing my worth in my body and thinking the only thing my body was good for was to get something. Anyway, so we go on. Well, I decided I had had enough. So um, I went and buried a towel that he had ejaculated on in the laundry. So the next day, when everything went down at the school, and Miss Joyner came to the school and took us, me and my sister Leslie, to her office, I told her about the towel. Well, I was able to get the towel, and they had it for evidence. Well, Freddie, him, and Gloria, my mother, would not allow them to test the other kids in the house that were of age to, get a count on them because Freddie had had a vasectomy. So that would have nailed the case, right? But they didn't want to do that simply because he was a snitch for them. Period. I'm not a fool. I'm not stupid. This is stuff that I know, that I have known my entire life. A man got away with taking my innocence because he was a snitch, not because there wasn't enough evidence. It's there. The evidence is there in the 321 pages. And he did 2 years house arrest, guys. 2 years. 2 years. There's a letter in the papers from my mother to me. I'll be sharing that letter. I'll actually be reading it probably on Friday night in detail. I'll be reading the exact letter. But I remember the day we went in court, the last day we went to court when Freddie pled out and copped a plea. My mother walked out of the courtroom with him, and I went behind her, and I asked her why. And she turned around and she looked at me in my face, and she said, "One day you'll be a mom and you'll understand." Y'all, my kids are grown. I still don't get it. My mother allowed us to live in conditions that were not right for children. She worked, left us with him. And he didn't just take advantage of me in the home. He would have me come and meet him down at his mother and father's house that lived right up the road. They had a little shed. He loved me to meet him there. There was a little creek down from the trailer we lived in. He used to love to tell me to walk with him down there because he needed to talk to me about my behavior. And Gloria co-signed it every time. I was never good enough. I never saw myself as enough. He stole my innocence, but my mother allowed it. You know, he was mean. He said hateful things. And my mother sat there and listened and watched it. For 2 years, that man had the ability to destroy me. And it didn't last 2 years. It lasted 2 years in his residence. It's lasted my entire life. I've always been a fighter. And honestly, that's the only reason I survived those 2 years in the home with him. because I've always been a fighter. Even when I was a little girl in Orangewood, I was fighting folks, y'all. I just, oh, but you have to be, you know? Like I said earlier, I was 5 years old when saw my first psychotherapist at Sunnyland in Gainesville because I told them that I was going to cut my stepmom. My father is still married to her to today, by the way, but I told them I was going to cut her up, mail her around the world so that my daddy would come back home. I was a daddy's girl, y'all. I was a daddy's girl. But again, I love my daddy more than he loved me because my daddy willingly walked out on us and didn't have anything to do with us. Now, my mother was hell, so I kind of understand, but at the same time, my dad could have fought for us. You know, he was our parent. There was more he could have done. And I'll never understand that view of it either, if I'm perfectly honest. But they made me see the therapist, and I'll never forget that therapist asked me what I had said I would do. And I took the doll she had given me and broke the arms and the legs and the head off of the body and took and placed it in different corners in the room. And then I began to tell the lady what I would do. Y'all, I grew up with a mother who instilled anger in me at a very early age. When we were in Orangewood, there's people that tell you our mother was not around when I was growing up. I raised Leslie and Christopher. There are so many people that checked on us, you know, and took care of us when we were little. You know, Mama Midge, hey, ain't nobody like her. You know, she loved us and she made sure we ate. You know, going to Pinehurst, sitting out on the green thing, laughing and talking in front of the apartments. You know, I have amazing memories, but my childhood was not a childhood. I never got to know me. I never knew who I was. I definitely never loved myself. And I was, oh gosh, just, oh Lord. You know, I was angry. But you know, I think about when I was in high school, and I have a lot of people from high school on my page. But I was in high school being picked on, being called Vamp Fro, because y'all see my teeth. These were not cute in the 90s in high school. And then I had an afro. For those of you that can't remember, I had an afro look like a helmet on my head, like a football helmet, y'all. The best afro ever. I got some pictures. I found them. I put them up here. Chad, I had an afro. Do you hear me? And because my mother didn't know anything about thick ethnic hair, I just had an afro and she kept it cut short. Why didn't she learn? Why didn't she ask somebody? Now, these are questions I ask myself as a mom and as a woman. Why didn't you learn? Why didn't you allow me to have a relationship with my dad? Because both of them are guilty in that you know, in that part of the situation. But you know, there have always in my life, God has always sent somebody to love me the way I needed to learn to love others. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I didn't grow up with love. I had my Mima and then Gert. You know, they love me. Let me tell you something. Ain't nobody on this earth will ever love me as much as those two women did. Julie, maybe. Julian loves me like that, and my kids, but it's different. They prayed for me. Both of them knew I was hurt and angry. And that's why I acted out the way I did, and why, man, I tell you, I just, I feel, but at the same time that I have those people, I feel like there were adults around me that either didn't know how to or just didn't care to help me. I think about when I was in foster care, my Mima went to First Baptist, and that was where I went with her. But there were very few there, adults, that actually reached out to me and loved me. They were phenomenal people. And they were I think they were the people that kept me from going off too far off the deep end when I was in high school. Man, I cannot. Uh, so many people didn't know. There were so many people that were not aware I was in foster care or why I was in foster care. My foster mom, y'all, she is amazing. She was Debbie Jones then. She's Debbie Rozier now, but she's married now. She wasn't married when she had me and Leslie in her home. And y'all, she loved me. I would walk past her and just hit her, or walk past her and kick her. She'd be just sitting in her chair and she would just hug me and tell me how much she loved me, no matter how angry I was. I sit and I hear all these stories about these kids that are being bullied, and they go through. I know I'm kind of all over the place, guys. I'm sorry, but it's my story, right? I can tell it how I want to. But they I lost where I was going, y'all. I'm sorry. I got so much going on in my head right now because I'm not supposed to be crying. Anyway, but there were people that I hear about these kids now. Remember, they just talk about they're being bullied at school, or they're, and they tell these stories, where they say they didn't know they were having a hard time at home, or they didn't know certain things. Y'all, hear me. There are people right there around you that are not paying attention. They could care less. So I encourage all of you people on my page that have any interaction with children of any age, listen to them. I think about Amanda Cooper. And y'all, when I was in high school, Amanda played for Mr. Hardy. She went to First Baptist as well, so I knew her and her family from there, but she played for Mr. Hardy for the middle school. Every day, 5 days a week, Amanda asked me how I was. She checked in. And on Sundays, she checked on me. Her husband, they checked on me. Mr. and Miss Hobbs, they loved me. They checked on me. But honestly, there were a lot of people around me that would rather have just not known what I was dealing with. A lot of adults around me would rather have not known that I was being molested at home. Don't be those adults. I'm asking you, I'm begging you. If you see somebody calling somebody's names, Look, Frovamp, look, there's a lot of y'all on my page that call me that, and we good, because I understand why, and I was hell myself. Yeah, I was mean. But it really isn't funny. I hope y'all are teaching your children not to be that way, because that, on top of what I was going through at home, I shouldn't still be here. But I thank God there was purpose. Everything I've ever been through, even as far back as I can remember what happened to me at 5 years old. At 5 years old, seeing that psychotherapist at Sunnyland, I had to be strong. Adversity was mine to bear. And now I have to use everything I've been through to help others. That's my purpose, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna help other girls and other boys and other adults. Hell, heck, maybe you like me and you 43 years old and you processing this stuff. Y'all, I just got that 321 page court case last year, I mean, the end of 2019, that I reviewed it. This happened to me when I was 13, 14. I was in foster care. I aged out. My mother never got us back. She didn't want to. She left us at Janice Joyner's office and went home to him. When Janice Joyner told her they can't be around him, she chose him over us. That's her choice. You know, as parents, we all got to make a choice. But I want to encourage everybody out there that's going through. And look, you're going through maybe a tough time on your job. Hear me. We're not all built to endure the same thing. We're not all built to face the same stuff. We're not all built to be broke. We're not all built to be rich. We're not all created to be we're all created to be purpose. We're all created for purpose, guys. And my purpose is my life, because is a story of triumph. And I'm not bragging, because, oh Lord, it's been some stuff over the years. And we're going to talk about all of it, y'all. I'm just trying to give a quick, till I come back on Friday. I'm going to go in a different area of my life story. I'm going to dig it up. We're going to dig it all up, y'all. I've dug it all up. It's deeper than carrots right now. You know what I'm saying? I've done it, tilled up the ground. It's new, fresh soil. But I have to tell my story so I can help other people. Because I'm not scared to talk about it. I'm not scared to, say names. I'm not scared of any repercussions, because there aren't any. Are you kidding me? I'm telling my own story. Unless I'm lying, which I have a 321 page document to prove everything I've said is the truth. But even if it wasn't, it's my story. I was the victim. I could tell what I want to tell. For anybody that got to go tell him what's going on, I could care less. I love you too, Carol. I hope you don't mind, but you guys, Kara was she was a rock for me through that. When other people didn't want to be my friend, she was my friend. And she knew what I was going through and that I was in foster care, and she never said a word to anybody. So thank you. And Kim Stuckey, that's her name now. She always looked out for me at church and wherever we was to be crazy. You know, and then there's the guys. They was crazy all by themselves, but I want to talk as I tell this story. I want to make sure I want to help people understand that we all go through and that you have to decide for yourself how you're going to look on the other side. And I know that's really hard when you're a kid and you don't feel like you got nobody. I've been there. But you have to make your mind up that it doesn't matter about nobody. It just matters about somebody, and that's you. But adults, parents, talk to your kids. You know, I'm not a big, oh, they're bullying type of person because I feel like kids are going to be kids. You know what I'm saying? Some stuff just out of order, but they're kids, you know. Sometimes they behave that way because of their, not because their parents allow it. Sometimes they're acting out because of what's going on. I mean, those of y'all that knew me in school and knew how crazy and mean and I fight fast as I look at somebody. That ain't normal to act like that. It ain't normal for a child to behave that way. That's just the truth. I don't care what y'all say. I might be not using the right vocabulary or whatever. However, something is wrong. That's not normal. But at the same time, you have to teach them to be confident in who they are, to love themselves. You know, I was a hoe for many years. I told y'all, I didn't think my body was worth anything except for what I could get. And it wasn't no Happy Meal type level stuff. I was never a broke hoe. When I was hoeing, I was balling. Anyway, I left 4 days after I graduated high school and went in the Navy. I never looked back. I couldn't. One, there was nothing back to see, right? There was nothing to look back on and see, right? You look back, then you have to see all of the memories, right? Look, reminiscing sometimes will put you in a bad place because what you're seeing when you look back that was meant to destroy you had purpose. But if you look back too soon, you don't see the purpose, you just see the hurt. And that really is in any area of our lives. I don't care if it's what it is that you've been through. Look, for a long time, looking back hurts because as mean and as hateful and as not hateful, but as mean as I was, I had to be because that was the only outlet I had. I didn't know I went to church at First Baptist and passed the same people day after day. Nobody, I never remember the Johnsons, Arthur and Carmela and Chuck. Oh, they were amazing. And the people that I listed, but there were people in that church that never asked if I was okay. And that's a big church, y'all. people in that church when I didn't sit with the other kids in the youth group that never asked why. Because I didn't, I was not Miss Popular. I had friends and those that loved me and was there for me, but I didn't care to have a lot of people around me because the more people that were around me, the more I had to lie about what I was going through. You know, my bestest friend, Rosalind, we've been friends since we were 10, but she's the only person that knew everything. You know what I'm saying? When I was sneaking to Gainesville and I was doing other stuff I didn't have no business. But you know what? The church people didn't have a clue because guess what? None of them ever checked in and asked me. None of them ever. So I'm telling you, church groups, pay attention. No child should be lost just because their parents don't go to church there. Now, there were people at First Baptist that were amazing, like Mr. Stuckey. Not Matt, his dad. He was amazing. He always looked after me and took care of me. Even though I was always sharp, him and Mr. Hardy still let me sing like I was good, like Erica and Aaron and stuff, you know. But they let me sing, and they loved me. They encouraged me. They never really had a conversation with me in detail as to what was going on, you know, but they knew I was in foster care. They knew that it was for sexual assault, sexual battery, excuse me, let me make sure I term it right. Because that's what I was in foster care for, sexual battery. That's why I was removed from the home. But they never checked, they didn't check in. I remember vividly those that did. What I went through in that part of my life affects my marriage. It hasn't affected many, well, I guess every sexual relationship I've ever had has been affected by what I went through as a kid, right? Because I thought it was all right to be a hoe. Let's be real. So obviously, you know, there's a little bit of, you know, shortcoming there. But I didn't realize I hated myself, if that makes sense. I thought I was being a grown woman. I thought I loved myself because I could pull any dude I wanted. It didn't matter. My Navy brothers used to tell them, talking about they check into the ship or see us out somewhere because they was on the same ship they were in, because I wasn't ship's company then. But they would tell them, they'd be like, oh, who is that? And they'd be like, you don't want to mess with her. She think just like a man. And I did. I never had any girlfriends other than Rosalind and a couple in high school and then a few I ran into years in the Navy. But even most of them, we weren't friends in the beginning. I couldn't stand chicks because I thought they was soft and they was whiny and they was just a pain in the behind. But the truth was, I didn't like me. It really wasn't about them. I was told at times when he would do certain things to me that that's what I deserved. That's all I was good for. And I began to believe that. So I'm telling you guys, people tell you stuff like that, get away from them. Right away, leave, get away from them. I don't care if it's a family member or I don't care who it is. Get away from them. You are enough and you deserve so much more. I also want to tell everybody on my page, everybody that can hear my voice, if you need somebody, I'm here. If you at church, if you go to church, I don't go to church, y'all. I've had we'll talk about that on another night. My time is almost up today. But we don't attend church. Um, but I will say this. There was a church that Freddie used to take us to in Keystone. And I'll never forget one Sunday, we were in that church. And this was when they were married before I went in foster care. And we were in that church, and I'll never forget, he started shouting, right? Like, and y'all know what I mean. If you don't know, it'll be all right. Google it. And I'll never forget, the pastor said, don't nobody touch him. It's the Holy Ghost. When we got home that afternoon, he called me down to his parents' shed. And took advantage of me physically and sexually and emotionally and mentally and any other way he could. And I don't know. And then, I aged out, left First Baptist when I turned 18. When I left for boot camp, I've never been back. I think I went one time with Mima, but and then we're at New Life in Gainesville. But y'all, it's just something about, I'm gonna tell you something, and I mean exactly what I'm fitting to say. I have been in the world, and when I say involved in worldly activities, I mean that, not just as a hoe, I mean in worldly activities. And some of the most unloving, selfish, backstabbing, disloyal, lying, cheating people I have ever met were church folks. And that's just the truth, y'all. So I know that when that man said that's the Holy Ghost dealing with him, that just meant both of them had the same devil. I know that ain't God. Are you kidding me? Ain't nobody got to tell me that. I know that wasn't God, but that didn't help me through the years that I went through what I went through in my life, and getting myself stable and beginning to love me. Do y'all know how long I hated April? I hated me. I hated me. But you know what? We can all make a difference. Moms, dads, if there's any red flags going on, don't be like Gloria. Don't be like my mother and act like you don't know what's going on. Or allow that man to in front of you say, to hit your child. I was 15 years old, y'all, and I was getting hit with a paddle, talking about they were going to break me. He was going to break me. And my mother sat there and laughed. Are you kidding me? If you're that parent, I challenge you to get your motherfucking ass together. Period. Get yourself together and apologize to your children because you're wrong. I've been on for an hour, so I'm gonna go. I've cried enough, right? Plus, I need to get back to my medication. And but I appreciate all of you guys logging on and watching me. I'll be back Friday night at 9 o'clock with more of my story. Um, it's quite a story, right? But I'm gonna tell it, and I want to help people. So if anyone needs me for anything or just to talk or has questions or maybe someone I can talk to, I would be grateful to help someone not have to go through as many years of hell as I did to get where I am today. But thank you guys for joining me. And this will be uploaded to YouTube. Please go and subscribe and like my YouTube page. It's Real Life Talk with April as well. And also like and follow me on my Facebook page so I can get my views and likes up and subscribers so I can start getting a check, y'all. As soon as I get a check, I'm going to let y'all know. If it's for $2, I'm going to tell y'all. But I'm going to get a check. I'm going to tell my story and I'm going to take my money and I'm going to help other young people. So we're going to get into some choices and decisions I made over the years that were because I didn't have guidance or how I lived through some of my own poor choices. We're going to talk about all of that. But I will see you guys on Friday night at 9 o'clock. Thank you.